the Sith. Because, first of all, I want to get on to the most controversial topic that we're going to get into this entire time. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people to switch this off before I even get 5 minutes into the video. I just have some trouble identifying Darth Vader and we won't call him Count, we'll call him Darth Tyrannus. I have trouble justifying that they were any more than just dark Jedi. I can't look at you with a straight face and say, oh yeah, no, that Darth Vader was the Sith Lord that, like, we all heard about, or Count Dooku was this mighty Sith Lord. I don't think that Count Dooku or Darth Vader ever had the time or just got to the point of becoming a powerful Sith Lord. I don't like, and I've watched the comics. I mean, I've read the comics. I've gone in and I've looked. But when you want to compare real Sith Lords and accolades, and I just don't see those two really stacking up to the majority of your, what we would call your average Sith Lord. With that being said, I remember that someone once told me that George Lucas said that Palpatine was meant to be the most powerful Sith Lord. End of story. Which is fine. I understand that. But if you want to look at strictly accolades and the situations that people have, like, accomplished in amount of times, Palpatine only had a reign for about, what, 20 years? If we're counting the Imperial Empire as the reign, I mean, technically he was the Republic Chancellor before that. If you want to count that, by all means count that. But he only had a reign for about 25, maybe like 25 years if you want to count the Clone Wars. The number might be off a little bit, but in 25 years, he did a lot, but he only lasted 25 years. When you take Vitiate and look at Vitiate and compare okay, Palpatine's the most powerful, we get it, that's what George Lucas wanted. When you take Vitiate and you put him and you stack him up against Palpatine's accolades, it's not even close. It's not even close. Palpatine doesn't even stand a chance against Vitiate. And for those who don't know, Vitiate was the Dark Lord of the Sith, like the Emperor of the Sith Empire during the times of, like, the Mandalorian Wars and such. At the end of the Mandalorian Wars, Revan and Malik, they heard a calling, or they sensed a calling, and what they did was they ran out to the farthest depths of space to track down this calling. And what they found was this powerful, just above Palpatine, like tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of power above Palpatine as far as power goes, as being a Sith Lord, that he was able to take their minds and twist their minds and send them back to do his bidding. Palpatine was powerful, don't get me wrong, but Palpatine could only cloud the vision of the Jedi around him and the people around him. Vitiate was able to take the minds of some of arguably the most powerful Jedi at that time, and I will argue to anybody who asks that the Old Republic Jedi are 10 times more powerful than the era of Jedi we have here in the Clone Wars. 100%, that's not even a debate. That wouldn't even be a debate for anybody. To think otherwise would be crazy. But when you look at the powerful Jedi during the Mandalorian Wars, Revan and Malik, and that they went and tracked down Vitiate, and Vitiate was almost instantaneously able to warp their minds and send them back to do his bidding. And they started building they started building the armies around the Star Forge. They really started to do stuff that, really set the events for, the Knights of the Old Republic game. Revan and Malik, what happened there. Malik betrayed Revan, and then Malik tried to go on and become this Dark Lord of the Sith that he just never could be, because in my mind, yet again, I feel like Darth Malik was nothing more than just a Dark Jedi. He was not a real Sith when it comes down to the word and the meaning of Sith. He was not a Sith. I feel that, Darth Revan, after the events of KOTOR 1, whether it be dark side or light side, you hear that he goes off to the unknown regions in search of something, and what that is in search of that emperor again. And we never hear again from Revan until the Old Republic books. The Old Republic video game came out, and they had the add-on for Revan's story. But Revan, from what our understanding is how powerful is this Sith Lord that Revan came back a second time and had to stay and he pretty much dedicated his entire existence to holding this emperor back from coming into the main lands of space. And when you look at that, that's power. That's power. They couldn't kill him. He came back. He kept sending things. He orchestrated the Mandalorian Wars. Which, honestly, when you look at wars, Palpatine orchestrated the Clone Wars, which was, it led to the end of the Jedi for the most part. I mean, there wasn't a single enclave standing that wasn't a target for the Empire at that point. I mean, let's just be honest. But when you look at the entirety of how much, not only one war started, but multiple wars, Vitiate had the Republic on its knees many times. Palpatine it was an interesting reign. It's like somebody threw the ball to him and he caught it, and he only had 30 more yards to the end zone, but he fumbled on the play and he lost it all. It was the rule of two, by the way, was the worst idea for the Sith. The rule of two is a perfect example of why the Sith failed today. The rule of two, imagine training only one person as a replacement, and then you're not even done. The rule of two makes no sense to me. Why not keep an army? Keep many Sith users, multiple Dark Lord titles, converge in a council, do it like the Jedi did, but do it better. I don't think that I think the rule of two was just disgustingly stupid. I think that I'll debate anybody on that rule of two. Sith are greedy anyway. They barely even pass all the knowledge on anyway, so it's not like anybody was going to become more powerful than the one who was already more powerful. Sith are backstabbing like that, and that's what makes the Sith just so glorious. But the rule of two is just very, very, very weird. It was a very arrogant rule to keep. The impression that two Sith could bring an end to the entirety of the Jedi, even to this day, was not proven. Palpatine and Vader couldn't do it. He couldn't keep Vader. He couldn't keep the influence over Vader. Imagine training a Padawan or an apprentice for what, like 20 years, and then at the end he still turns on you. That's not the kind of influence that a real Sith brings to the table. I revert back. Revan is 10 times more powerful than Darth Vader with the suit. Once Vader became stuck in that suit, he was not as powerful. He couldn't even do Force lightning with that suit without short-circuiting the suit. So, he couldn't even keep that broken fraction of a man influenced enough to keep him to doing what he was supposed to do. He turned on him. Revan and Malak were these extremely powerful entities, like Force users during that time. Malak's still a Dark Jedi, not a Sith, but he was able to take them and corrupt them and corrupt the entire army, the Jedi that followed him, the army, like everybody that went with him, that armada that went with him to take down this one Sith emperor, they all got their minds warped and served him. They served him. If Palpatine was so powerful, wouldn't he have been able to implement such a strategy, to have the Senate, to control the minds of the Senate? They had to do, and this is where I love episode 2, because I pay attention to episode 2. If I'm not mistaken, the Senate was very much against doing an army, voting for an army. Palpatine had to get emergency powers so that he could put the army into place. Imagine that. He didn't have the willpower. And these are senators, not Jedi, powerful old Republic version Jedi Mandalorian War veterans that have seen it all, done it all. Strong-minded individuals. These are just weak, feeble-minded senators. And he couldn't just, like that. Vitiate took over an armada within a 30-second conversation with Darth Revan and Malak. I mean, come on. I get that they want him to be the most powerful Sith Lord of all time. I get it. Palpatine is. And I love Palpatine. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. But to give you in a level to what most people would understand, Palpatine is maybe on a Kreia level. Maybe a little stronger. But he's not like on a Vitiate level. Excuse me. I would even go as far to say, as far as raw power goes, he's not even on the level of Darth Nihilus, who arguably was the third fiddle to the Sith Triumvirate. He couldn't do much in a sword fight. I mean, look at the game. Look how he ended up. He was strict raw force power, but even him, I think, best Palpatine. I don't think and I'm not dogging on Palpatine, but I'm just saying that when we want to make a list about Sith Lords, and there's a top 5, top 10, whatever, when you put Sidious on the top, like, as number one, there's gotta be some questions. Like, I'm gonna want to know some answers. Why would you put Sidious on the top of a list where he couldn't best anyone that was on that list behind him? Like, anyone on the list that was behind him, he could not best in a swordsman match, in a force powers, in accomplishments and accolades. I mean, let's be honest. When you want to talk about amassing everything, when it comes to cunning, it's very cunning to go from doing, rising through the political ropes. But even that is sort of a cowardice way. They took it off of straight power, raw power. Look at the Old Republic. Look how the Sith showed up in force. They didn't play this, let's sneak around and rise up the political ranks. And this was done, in my opinion, because they have stunted themselves with this rule of two that has forced themselves to maneuver in such a way. Because if you had a normal standing Sith empire, or the Jedi Council, whatever the number was on the Jedi that time, if that was a mirroring number with the Sith, there would be no need to waste all this time to enact. Imagine spending 15 to 20 years to enact a plan that only lasts for about 20 years. So it's like you really didn't even break even. Like, you got enough power just to start doing research, and then your own apprentice betrayed you. The Rebel Alliance terror group known as the Restore to the Alliance, whatever you want to call those extremists, they came and they were able to. It wasn't even like a standing republic force that took the Galactic Empire down. It was rebel resistant fighters. It was the smallest amount of like it blows my mind. You couldn't, you got Darth Vader, who is, to a normal non-force user, a very powerful entity. Why was he not, dispatched to track down Mon Mothma? Why, if Palpatine is so great and glorious and can cloud the visions of others, how could he not put it together that Mon Mothma was up to no good? How could they not take out Mon Mothma? If you knew what could potentially to me, it makes no sense, man. Palpatine was doomed from the beginning. No matter how they look at it, he was doomed from the beginning. The rule of two was disgusting. I think he killed his master prematurely, by the way. If you go and you read everything, I still think he had far more to learn from this man. And this man was very much I don't know. I think Palpatine was a good character, but when you want to compare him to the big guys, it's a tough comparison. Let's be honest. Like I said, the first thing I said earlier, if anyone remembers, was the Jedi from the Old Republic era are 100 times stronger and more powerful and more efficient than the Jedi of the Clone Wars. So take that into consideration. Palpatine was playing the game on maybe easy or normal difficulty, while these Sith Lords back in the day were playing the game on heroic and legendary. There's your Halo reference. And so it's a whole different playing field. The enemies that Vitiate and them had to fight were 10 times more powerful than the enemies that Palpatine had to deal with. And Palpatine still managed to only have a 2-decade reign. With all the entities that were around, the Mandalorians during the Mandalorians, I'll give them credit, they were around during all of this. The Mandalorians during the Palpatine era are less than a percent of a fraction to the power of the Crusaders and Mandalore the Ultimate, and even the scattered Mandalorian clans right after the Mandalorian Wars were still more of a threat than what you see today with the Mandalore. They went pacifist. Politics started getting involved. They were fighting amongst themselves. Back then, there was more order amongst the Mandalorians, which, again, I'll go and say that the Old Republic Mandalorians are 100 times better than the Mandalorians of the Mandalorian era or the Clone Wars era have at you, whichever one you'd like to pick. It got so out of hand, let's be honest, it got so out of hand in the Clone Wars era for the Mandalorians that they had a Sith leading them at one point. They had Darth Maul calling the shots, pretty much. That would have never happened. Canderous Ordo, they had Exar Kun. They had the Exar Kun situation, but you know what? I would go and say Exar Kun is more powerful than Darth Maul. That is a crazy situation we can dive into at another time. But I think that when you look at it from a whole, the Old Republic era is just more powerful. No matter how you look at it, the Republic was the Republic armies. I mean, maybe the Clone Wars was the Clone Army was a more. Why would you bite the duct tape, Bubba? Why would you bite duct tape for? Revan, you're not supposed to bite duct tape. Why do you do that? You don't have enough toys in the back seat, dude? There's 19 toys. You have 2 deer antlers. There's a bully stick somewhere. None of that's good enough. Crazy baby. Um, Speaking of Revan, we weren't even talking about Revan. I named my dog Revan. I'm such a fan of Revan. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't try to like steer you guys wrong, but this is my opinion. I think that like the errors are just there's a power discrepancy, a huge power discrepancy between the two, and I think that no matter how you look at, I mean, if you want to get technical, if you want to use the Acolyte as an example, since they snuck that in there, they sprinkled the Acolyte into the canon. So if you want to use that as an example, take the Acolyte as an example of the transition period of where we had such mighty Jedi to all of a sudden weak and vulnerable and you know, not powerful Jedi. So whatever happened was during that Acolyte period. I'm glad they came out with something bad because it gave us the opportunity to blame the power discrepancy on something. It just happened during the Acolyte era. Just look how terrible the Jedi conducted themselves during that era. So it's like, it's perfectly reasonable to incorporate the Acolyte now because we did need an explanation for why the power discrepancy was so crazy. Like, why were the Jedi of the New Age so less powerful than the Jedi of the Old Republic? Well, something happened during that Acolyte era. Go ahead and check that out now. Go and watch the disaster that unfolded, and then you understand. You go, okay, so that makes sense. That's the start of the decline for the Jedi becoming as weak as they did when we get to the Clone Wars, when we get to Episode 1, because now they've been running the way this Acolyte show had shown you. It's just, the lady probably didn't mean to make it terrible, but by making it terrible, it actually shined a lot of light on discrepancies between the canon and the legends, which kind of helps morph into why beings are more powerful in the Old Republic than they are during the Clone Wars. It makes a lot of sense. The Acolyte, they made a disaster, but never waste a good crisis. We found an example of why the Acolyte does fit into Star Wars now. It's a perfect example. Keep Ki-Adi-Mundi in there too, because if he was a lying little you-know-what, at least we know, and we know this is a testament to the Jedi declining over time, and that's a perfect example. It's also a perfect example of if you don't go and work out every day, you're going to start to lose your muscle, and then when someone comes to try to fight you, you're not going to be as strong as you once were. I think it's a perfect example of that. I think that the Acolyte should be used as that example, as the transition of when the Jedi started to become less powerful and lose their way, as opposed to how they were during the Old Republic times. Because, like I said before, the rule of two is what messed up the Sith. What was the Jedi's excuse becoming less powerful over time? You would think being uninterrupted, you would be able to tap into more knowledge, maybe even bend some rules just to learn to accomplish more and conquer more in the Force. But instead, you guys sat around and got lazy to the point where you dismissed threats. And it's like, it's crazy to me, because that's how I feel Palpatine was really able to get himself up there, because it wasn't that he was just dealing with less powerful Force users at this time, but he was also dealing with lazy, arrogant less powerful Force users at this time. And that's what I think really contributed to Palpatine being able to get through this, rise in the way that he did. Because if this was Old Republic time, there's like 3 or 4 different councils, first of all, not just one council on Coruscant. So it's like there's enclaves all over the place. That wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened, not politically. So they would have had to go on strength versus strength, and the Rule of Two destroyed that outcome, because, okay, cool, have an entire big army of Sith troopers, but only have 2 Force users in the entire army, where you would have the Republic with multiple Force users. Call them Padawans, Jedi Knights, no matter what, they're still Force users in the game that can really do damage against non-Force users. Unless you're Jango Fett and you just know where to shoot, you're going to have a tough time with a Force user, no matter what they are. So I think that puts a lot of perspective into why I think Palpatine shouldn't be ranked number 1 as the top Sith Lord of all time. I think Vitiate should take the title. Like I said, I'm also mixed from my initial statement. I still feel that Darth Vader and Darth Tyrannus were nothing more than dark Jedi that never really actually achieved that level of Sith. And I would never call them Sith Lords. And that, just tell me if I'm wrong. Does a Sith Lord save his son from his master and betray his master to help his son reunite the galaxy? That doesn't sound like a Sith Lord behavior. So when you ask me, does Count Dooku sound like the guy that was actually interested? I mean, he sounded like he was interested in learning, but he was not corrupted into the dark side, seduced by it the way that everyone else was. His eyes were always pretty normal. Palpatine was able to change his appearance, so that's what that was about. He's so powerful, able to change his appearance, but couldn't change people's minds. Um, I think that no, I think that Palpatine is no different than like I said, a Kreia level. Kreia, give or take. Kreia and Palpatine could fight 10 times, and five times Palpatine would win, 5 times Kreia would win. That's my personal opinion. I know, I know the whole Rey situation. I do not count Rey versus Palpatine as an actual battle. I mean, the guy's on a life support system. I mean, come on, do you go to your enemy while he's on a life support system in the hospital and say, we're fighting right now? Like, no, that was stupid. It was stupid. They tried to butcher Palpatine and make him look bad. Honestly, they tried to make the whole last couple episodes for the Star Wars movies look bad. I really do hope they change direction with that, only because we really just need to get back to business and start talking about the actual Star Wars story and not our fantasy dreamlands. Well, like this last few episodes of Star Wars and some of the shows, we won't talk about them, but just feel like there's been a bad dream. You've just been dreaming, and like your bad dreams have been trying to create Star Wars and make it so that you don't like Star Wars, or like you're freaked out by it. And that's how I kind of feel like that was. And that now that we don't have that issue anymore, I feel like, because things look like they're going back. Skeleton Crew is a good sign. It is a little kid show, but it's a good sign. So is the Clone Wars, if you want to get technical. So is Star Wars Rebels, if you want to get technical. I think that they're going in a better space. I think that the gentleman that did the Thor, that directed the Thor, should stay 600,000 miles away. I don't know, whatever number you like best, but he should stay away from the Star Wars projects. We don't need somebody that's swathing a path of destruction and turmoil for the storylines that he touches. We need to keep people like that far, far away. And it's people's voices that will speak up. Let's hope that Bob Iger, whatever his name is, makes the right call in the situation. Star Wars can be a lot of money. It can be worth a lot of money if you decide to sell. If you decide to sell to the right people, you can make a lot of money, and I know that's what Disney wants, to recuperate their investment. So let's hope that the right company comes along and swoops up Star Wars and restores it back to the way that it needs to be. No more experiments. Why fix something that was never broken in the first place? We need to get back to the regular Star Wars we all know. You want to add new things? Go ahead and add the lore, the expanded lore. There's plenty of that. There's years and decades worth of stuff for that. Let's restore Star Wars to the full body that it should be. Let's not continue to limit it by keeping it leashed up to a fence all day while other people ride by and point and laugh and say, look at what you've become. We don't need that. We actually need real Star Wars to come back. People like Star Wars Theory. I love him. Don't get me wrong. But he should be out there campaigning for this. He has the platform. He's got millions. Get out there. Start telling people to stand up. Write to Disney. If 2 or 3 people complain, that's whatever. Who cares? 2 or 3,000? Now it's 200,000? Like, don't let them take away what we've come to know and love, because they think they know how to do it better. If they knew how to do it better, we'd still be talking about their shows in high regard. Don't you think it's funny that we have to revert back to the old republic because there's not enough worthy content to talk about with this new stuff? It's funny to me. And the conversation doesn't even... Back then, it was about what the story was going to be like. Now the conversation for Star Wars shows is who's directing it and all this stuff that has nothing to do with Star Wars, because that, nowadays, unfortunately, very much impacts the direction of where that show is going to go. And it's unfortunate, because back in the day, when you heard a new Star Wars show comes out, or a new Star Wars movie comes out, rather, you're more like, oh, what's going to go on with the storyline? Now we're worried about who's writing the storyline, because we don't know if they're going to actually do the right thing. And that's the problem, because if you're doing something for so long, you become egotistical with it sometimes. A lot of people. It's human nature. So it's like, of course, some writer sitting up in California that just got a soy latte, 2 creams, and extra whipped cream with the drizzle on top is sitting there thinking, what are they talking about? They don't like the story. I've been writing stories for 5-10 years. I get paid to do this. You should sit back and let the professionals go at work. Like, those type of people are what you're dealing with right now. Not somebody that's like, oh, they don't like it? Oh, you know what? It does kind of bend the lore a bit. Let's do something to fix this. Done. Boom. Because after all, if you're working on it, you are somewhat a Star Wars fan, right? I mean, you're not just working on Star Wars because you hate it or you don't know what it is. I mean, I hope if you don't know what Star Wars is and you're trying to work on it, get away from it. Just get away from it. You don't see me talking about like the guy who did the Thor. I don't know his name. I just don't know his name off the top of my head. But he had a disastrous resume, and they somehow let him close to Marvel. But they're never gonna do that again, from what I heard. So that's at least a good thing. But don't let him come over here. You know, just because he sucked over here doesn't mean you can just incorporate him in over here. Oh no, he'll do better here. That's crazy. Get that guy away from Star Wars. Call Lucas. Call George Lucas. And have him call Filoni and be like, dude, what is going on? Have him straighten it out. Let's get back to regular Star Wars. That's it. But my top 5 Sith list, I didn't say it because I wanted to wait till the very end. Number 5, I'm probably going to throw Darth Maul in as number 5. Now, for those who don't know who Darth Maul is, Darth Maul was in the Old Republic. He was actually from my knowledge, one of the only Sith Lords I know to actually become one with the Force after he passed. So that guy, I put a lot of stock in him. Now remember, I'm saying my favorite, not like, well, the most powerful. We'll do the most powerful, I guess. Number 4. As far as the most powerful, number 4, I'm gonna put Darth Nihilus, because the ability that Darth Nihilus, the pure power, again, something Palpatine couldn't do. You can't just stroll up to a planet full of Jedi from your ship and just wipe everything out. Just consume everything with the Force and just wipe everything out. That's pure power in my mind. Number 3, I'm going to go to Kreia. Kreia is by far one of the most powerful Sith entities of all time. They don't call it Darth Treya for nothing. I think that, and she continues, you can argue that voice in the Clone Wars that comes out in that Sith temple, some will argue and say that that's her. They think that it's her, or they'll give you reasons why they suspect it's her. She's powerful, and her name rings bells. Her name's it rings bells to the entire Star Wars community. A seasoned Star Wars enthusiast is going to absolutely know who Kreia is and is going to put the powerful respect on her name that is deserved there. So that's where she is. Number 2, I'm going to give you Palpatine. Because I do agree that he is very powerful and is one of the most powerful Sith Lords of all time. But due to his circumstance of being limited and also just being in an area with all like very significantly less powerful and lazy Jedi, he was able to accomplish a lot more with less work. He would have had to have done more and not have done the political route if it was actually some Old Republic style Jedi power we were dealing with. And of course, number 1 is going to be Vitiate, the actual most powerful Sith Lord of all time. That man right there alone controls armadas, flips armadas. Armadas come to attack him, and when they show up like that, and they're back on his bidding, doing his bidding, attacking other nations or other planets. So Vitiate's always going to be number 1, no matter what. Vitiate definitely has the power and the credibility to keep that claim. Now, you'll notice I didn't mention like Darth Revan. For those who weren't listening, earlier, who just caught up, Darth Vader, Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus. All right, go sit down, buddy. Go sit down, Bubba. Good boy. I don't consider them even Darth Revan to that level. I consider Revan a Dark Jedi because Sith Lords don't redeem themselves and go back and become, the savior of the Republic and become this worthy, redeemed Jedi that goes off to search for the Sith Emperor and track him down. So I do believe that I put Revan in the category with Darth Vader and Count Dooku, or Darth, if you want to call him Darth Tyrannus. So what is that? What is it? What is it? Oh. What is it, Revan? Is it dog meat? Dog meat? Oh, man. But, so I consider Darth Revan, Count Dooku, and Darth Vader are sort of in the same category when it comes to, are they actually Sith? I wouldn't even consider Revan the Dark Lord of the Sith because remember, They thought he was the Dark Lord of the Sith when he returned, but they didn't realize that there was an actual Dark Lord of the Sith that sent him. So when you want to get technical, he wasn't the Dark Lord of the Sith. I do think, however, when it comes to Count Dooku, he was not like Count Dooku's plan was to get captured on that ship when Anakin beat him, go to jail until the remainder of the Clone Wars was over, and then get re-released and become a nobleman. That was his goal. He had no ambitions of maybe ruling again side by side with his master, but he had no ambitions of taking out Palpatine and becoming this Dark Lord. At least not from my understanding. The way I've exhibited Count Dooku and gone back and watched and listened and read stuff, he always kind of seemed like he was just there to be a partner with Palpatine more than anything else, but to learn under him as well. But like I said, he's definitely not a pure Sith. I wouldn't consider Count Dooku an actual Sith Lord. And I think that Palpatine calling him a Sith Lord in that battle, like, he's no match. You're no match for him. He's a Sith Lord. Like, I think that even Palpatine knew that wasn't true. I think Palpatine was just, making fun of the situation. I know for a fact that Palpatine knew that Dooku was just a replaceable pawn that was a placeholder at the time. No different from a bookmark in a book you were reading at a Dunkin' Donuts that you can't come back and get till tomorrow when you get your latte with 2 sprinkles of peppermint, pumpernickel, whatever. Peppermint. Yeah, see, I think I'm Chill Sunning and I can get all these slogans out and I can't. I keep fumbling my words. But yeah, so it's like one of those situations that, it's Dooku just wasn't really a bad guy. He was an angry guy and disillusioned guy, but he wasn't a guy that was like, oh, I have dreams to conquer the whole galaxy and then will do my bidding and I will rule with this iron fist. Like, nah, he seemed to be more of a nobleman. And, I mean, look at the expression on his face when Jango Fett died and the sadness he felt for Boba Fett at that moment. It was a perfect example of Sith don't do that. Sith don't care about that. Sith will go over there and make Boba feel like, how does this make you feel? Do it. So, like, I don't know. When it comes down to it, if Vitiate and Sith like that existed in this era, Palpatine would be little more than a chair on a council full of members to answer to the higher up. He would never be in this level. But the Rule of Two really destroyed the Sith. If you want to get technical, the Rule of Two was just the worst thing that could have happened for the Sith. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, the Rule of Two was created by a dark Jedi that fallen and became Sith, not an actual born and raised Sith. Which I'll give Palpatine the credit for my understanding. Palpatine isn't really too familiar with it being on the Jedi Temple, if I'm not mistaken. See, that's actually a good question. I'm not sure if they screwed around with that lore, because a lot has happened in the past few years where Disney has done some reconstructing with the lore. So I'm not actually going to confirm myself saying that yet. I want to go back and look now. But, yeah. Everything's weird. And if you want the answer, final thoughts, if you want the answer to why the Old Republic Jedi are way more powerful than the Jedi of the Clone Wars and Yoda's era, just go watch The Acolyte. That's the transition period of where the Jedi started to crumble. And the whole show was just a disaster, but it's a perfect depiction of, like, the badness and, like, the less powerful Jedi that we have now as opposed to the Old Republic. Just refer to The Acolyte. If you can bear through it, you will know the story. But it's like trying to watch that show, that movie that Marvel put out. I don't remember what it was, but it was a very, very boring movie. I don't remember what it was now, but it was like something about giant celeste beings. I don't know. I don't remember what it was actually. I don't remember what the movie was, but it was like a really boring one. It was like it was like 5 or 6 different people, and they all had like certain powers, and they like fought. I don't know what they fought. They fought like, it was Marvel. It was like the preludes to like the Marvel timeline, and they were like, I don't remember it. They were like, oh man, I don't remember. But it was from Marvel, but that goes to show you. If it was good, I would have remembered it. But I don't remember what it was called, and it's killing me now. I don't know. But on that note, anyway, it was about the Sith anyway we were talking about. I gave you my 5. It was Mar, Nihilus, Kreia, Palpatine, and vitiate. And for anyone wondering why I put Mars number 5 is because I didn't see any other Sith, once they perish, become one with the Force and come back as a Force ghost. I have not seen that. So the level of power that had to have been studied and trained and repetitively like exhibited to get that feat, I think shows a lot of power in a Jedi. I mean, in a Sith or Jedi, regardless of who you are, to become one with the Force. But he was also like, Darth Maul was not to be messed with. He was he held his own weight for sure. He was on the seat of a council, but he was definitely like one of the stronger guys. But with that being said, I'm gonna sign off. Me and Revan are gonna get a dog walk going later, probably, most likely. Hey, oh, there he is. And yeah, and then we'll do that, and we will be back later on. And we hope everybody has themselves a great day. Right, big man? Right, big man? Say bye. Revan says bye. See, I'm training Revan. I always wanted to say that. Once I got Revan, I'm like, yep, I'm training. I will train the boy. Young Revan. I'll see you later. You say bye to everybody. Alright. We're out of here, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.